This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle. Waggle is a golf term, so their origin is obvious. But, like you and I, their roots extend well beyond the tee box. Waggle is rooted in early mornings on the water and late nights around the campfire, in lacing up the skates, and in casting a line. These hobbies and passions are what inspire their team daily to create apparel that makes you say, wow, this was made for me. Because, really, it was. Waggle's biggest sale of the year is live right now. Hats, polos, pants, shorts, jackets, flannels, socks, everything is 30% off. We pulled together a list of our all-time favorite products, so make sure you shop the link in the description.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wildly Informed. We're in a little bit of a hiatus while you're out traveling. I had a vacation mixed in there, the Olympics. So jumped on once with Hoppy and Z, kind of post-trade deadline to get some of my thoughts in there. But really glad to be back on. Isha, tell us about your trip. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I mean, 6 weeks on the road. I can't really sum it up other than it was a lot of fun. It was long, but essentially I have another client who's one of the owners of Back Channel Brewing, and he has a whole like health and wellness podcast, and I produce it. And he built a 20-foot long, 15-foot tall mobile sauna and decided to take this thing on the road to like certain destinations to like go hiking, to hold events for athletes, wellness retreats, straight up parties. And he also banked like, I think 10 episodes of his podcast all around the United States. So we were literally on the road for 6 weeks, banking podcasts, meeting cool people, hiking. And yeah, it was awesome. But we're home now, literally got back and it snowed a stupid amount. I was in the desert pretty much in either Texas or Arizona for like 80% of the trip. And my tan is already fading.
Yeah, end of February, I was also down in Arizona. We were ironically in Arizona at the same time, which is like the odds of that happening are very low, it would seem. But yeah, it was nice, being down there, 90 degrees during the day and like 60 overnight. And then, yeah, came back, brought a little bit of that little like teaser spring back. And then, of course, the big snowstorm over the weekend. And now most of it melted today, and it's going to be 70 on Saturday. So just your classic Minnesota spring-winter hybrid that we're getting here through the month of March. But really glad to be back here on the show. I mean, we're, as you mentioned, 6 weeks on the road. So a lot has happened. The Olympics happened. The state tournament happened. The trade deadline happened. The Wheeler prospect rankings happened. A lot of wild stuff has happened. A lot of hockey stuff has happened. So we have a lot to get to today. So it might deviate a little bit from our typical show structure just as we kind of catch up on everything. We'll probably just roll the headlines and opinions into one segment. And then I have a little bit on Michael McCarron and his impact on the Wild here in the analytics section of the podcast. So lots to get to. Excited to get back to it.
Yeah, and already the chat, and rightfully so, disappointed about tonight's performance. The Wild's 18-game win streak against the Blackhawks ends tonight. I think it was November of 2017 was the last time the Blackhawks beat the Minnesota Wild until tonight.
Crazy.
For everyone disappointed, like I get it. Like I really wanted to see them win as well. I honestly wanted to see the big dogs on the team play a little bit better. But for those who are like, shit game, bad performance, I mean, like both teams played really good hockey, which made for kind of a boring game. It was very defense heavy on both sides of the puck. I would say the Wild did a good job of commanding the neutral zone. The Wild had an astronomical amount of hits and an astronomical amount of lead in regards of hit differential. And both goalies played really good. And I would say Knight played like out of his mind good tonight as well. And the Wild hit the post like 2 or 3 times, twice on the 5-on-3. It just wasn't their night. Now we can be critical about a few of the players, but like, I really don't think this should be the game that you guys are most disappointed about. That's my little post-game rant.
They're 0-3-1 in their last 4 home games. Not ideal, but I think tonight, the better team did win. I think Chicago did outplay them for the most part, but I think you look back, those other losses against the Rangers, the Flyers, and the Maple Leafs, like if you look at the numbers under the hood for those games, like the Wild are basically like out doing the other team everything, like 2-1 on everything except for finishing, which ultimately you have to finish to win the games. But
Yeah.
If it was they lost 4 out of 5 playing like they did tonight, yeah, then I'm a little more worried. But you're missing 2 of your best guys tonight. You're missing a leader in Foligno out there. So that makes a difference. You got some guys that are getting in there coming back from injury. So don't want to make excuses, but to your point too, hit a couple posts, like a couple inches here, a couple inches there, and it's a different conversation. So
now really played amazing too tonight again. So no complaints there.
Yeah, and they gotta put this one behind them because they got Dallas and Tampa Bay coming up the next 2. So no time to sit and sulk. But if there's one thing we've seen the Wild do here this season, it's really get up for those big games when they've played those higher end teams, and likely playoff preview when Dallas is in town here on Saturday afternoon at 3:00. So that should be a good one. Excited to kind of see, hopefully the Wild a little more healthy for that game, but playoff preview game, and that atmosphere should be electric.
Absolutely. And guys, we read your comments out the whole show. In our Puck Your Opinion segment, the last segment of your show, if you have any direct things you want to bitch and complain about in regards to this game in particular, hit us up in that last segment, or just write saving for last segment or for last segment, and I'll save it here. Because we have a lot to get to. We're not going to catch up on everything from the last 6 weeks, but obviously there's a few things we got to get into. And then we're going to dive into just what the near future looks like with this new, shooken up roster with a lot of depth, and how, just our thoughts now leading up to the playoffs. It's the next few weeks, Brett, are going to be kind of the lull part of the season, just hoping and praying guys stay healthy. But at the same time, with some of these line shakeups, with some of maybe the new chemistry that's formed, it could be some really exciting times as well going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there is an advantage to. I don't think the Wild have officially clinched a playoff spot. I don't know that anybody has. Colorado maybe, but it's all but certain. It seems like the Wild will meet likely Dallas in the first round, unless Avs struggle, Stars win some games, things like that. But it gives you a chance, kind of knowing your matchup. Okay, we saw them do it tonight, right? Jumbling up the D pairs a little bit, separating Hughes and Faber, seeing if, giving a different look. Will they stick with that? I don't know, but, I think it's a good time, especially if they can get healthy, just to throw the lines in the blender for a couple of these games, see what works, give yourself options. One of our biggest criticisms back in the Dean Evison era was just his refusal to swap out lines, both in between games, during games. That's not something John Hines has shown any bit of timidness toward doing. So I imagine we will see that a little bit. But, hopefully I think the biggest thing is you just want to see him play some good hockey here down the stretch. I mean, the wins and losses, yeah, they matter. But I think to our point earlier, I just want to see them play well and not just kind of coast into the playoffs, come in with some momentum and different things like that. So that's kind of what I'm watching for here.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's jump into the hockey headlines.
Yeah, so if we got a lot, I think we'll just kind of start with the world stage, and then
we'll rapid fire through concise points, because I'm sure there'll be a few weeks in between now and playoffs where it's okay, there's nothing really to talk about. Let's dive into this storyline from the Olympics, or whatever, X, Y, and Z. But let's just start with the fucking Olympics. Yeah,
so Olympics, that's obviously a huge story. We get the NHL players back there for the first time, I believe, since it was 2014. We get the matchup we won in the gold medal between the U.S. and Canada. We get an excellent game headlined by a Matt Boldy goal. And then, of course, the overtime winner by Jack Hughes to secure the United States' first gold since 1980, since the Miracle on Ice team in the 1960s.
And the anniversary year as well. So
of beating the Soviets. Yeah, so a pretty cool storybook out of that. But just wanted to kind of do a little bit of a zoom out and just kind of get your thoughts on the overall Olympics. Kind of, there were some nice surprises with the way Slovakia played. I think there was maybe kind of one blowout that I remember. I think it was Slovakia that just kind of punched someone in the teeth, 10 rip or something. But a lot of the games a lot closer. We saw, I believe, the Swiss goalie who was 39, played us out of his mind. Speaking of
Slovakia played way better than I think a lot of people gave him credit for.
Samuel Lavai, again, looks pretty good for them. But, small sample, the Wild players, obviously Boldy, Hughes, really impactful. Philip Gustafsson, probably not the Olympics he had hoped for. I don't believe Jesper Valseth ever saw the ice. Neither did Marcus Johansson. But it was really awesome to see the NHL players back there, like to see the compete level. Just some fantastic games mixed in there, some tight ones with Canada and Czechia, obviously the United States and Sweden in the quarterfinals, like basically a medal game there. That one was entertaining. I think just overall, great to have the players back and a great on ice product that we got throughout that tournament.
Yeah, and smaller ice and no Russia, and it was still awesome, which was great. And I loved like the sub storylines, like you said, hardly any blowouts. It was competitive all around. I mean, imagine if, Fiala doesn't break his leg. What the Swiss would have done, right? You wonder if like Levi doesn't get pulled, if he could stand tall and, maybe do something in that, semifinal game. So anyways, there was just so many fun storylines. It delivered 100%. On the women's side of things, I'll say this, like I've watched a ton of great women's Canadian teams. Like Haley Wickenheiser, I still think is like the greatest women's hockey player of all time. Marie-Philippe Poulin is up there right now for Canada. And there's obviously some great Canadian players. And there's been some amazing American players throughout history as well. I mean, Hillary and I making history still. But that Team USA women's team was the best women's hockey team I've ever seen play an international tournament. And I nerd out and even watching like the women's like world championships. And there've been some really good Finnish like women's teams as well who've just like beasted their way through Canada and the States with physicality. But this American team had physicality, they had skill, they had speed. And like that first game in the preliminary round against Canada, they beat the shit out of them, dude. Dude, Layla Edwards had 7 hits, a goal, and an assist. And she wasn't even like one of the stars of the game. And 4 of the hits were reverse hits on the Canadian chicks. Like when I say this was one of the most dominant hockey teams I've ever seen in a tournament, Canada did not deserve to go to overtime with them. Marie-Philippe Poulin injured is just even that good because she put this team on her fucking back and like carried them into overtime. And, it kind of had her own McKinnon moments in overtime. And speaking of overtime, by the way, and I'm not saying this because Canada lost twice. I would say this too if I was a full-blooded American, because for me, it's even a fraction of an asterisk. And where this is, where I'm going with this. Fuck 3-on-3 gold medal game. Like, what are we? I'm right there with you.
I think even Americans, like, they're excited that we won, but I think many are in that boat that shouldn't be decided 3-on-3.
I'm not even saying it and coming from the opinion of like Canada would have won if it wasn't 3-on-3. That's not what I'm saying. Like this is the gold medal game. Like this is as important as a Stanley Cup playoff game or final, right? Like. And we're not seeing 3-on-3 in that. Like, you go till the fucking end, Yeah, I don't know. So so on the women's side of things, when I saw the Zamboni come out, I was like, oh, sweet. Okay, yeah, 5-on-5, we're good. And then I saw 3, and I was like, oh, man. And then as a Canadian watching the American one, don't get me wrong, Hellebuyck was playing out of his mind. It was a great game overall. But, 1 + 1 = 2. Quinn Hughes on the ice 3-on-3 equals you win the game. And, look what fucking happened. So.
Yeah, I think just to get back to your point with the women's team, like you said, the best team we've ever seen in the tournament. I'd argue it's one of the best hockey teams I think I've watched ever. Like they were that, like they just killed everybody. Like they gave up 2 goals the entire tournament. I think the final tally was 34-2. And like to your point, like it was contributions up and down the lineup from players like Edwards on the blue line, like Caroline Harvey, who's not even in the PW yet. Looks like she might be the best defenseman
Abby
on
Murphy.
the planet.
Is not even in the PW. She's probably going to go first overall and get brand deals through the roof.
I think Harvey's going to go first. I think she might be the best defenseman on the planet right now for the women's game. But it was just awesome. Like to your point, like in that first matchup with Canada, like no Marie-Philippe Poulin, and they just dominated Canada in that one and
destroyed them.
And then found a way to win it.
Well-deserved gold for the American women, 100%. And hey, it was a great game, Canada versus USA. We won in the whatever it was, 4 nations. You guys won the Olympics. We're 1-1 in the modern era. Cannot wait for that. Hopefully 6 nations or whatever, so we can keep the rivalry going. Because there's way less of a gap between Canada and the other nations now. And as a Canadian, I fucking love it because and I said this all the time, and I said this during my Olympic stream. You can go back and even watch it. I would rather lose by 1 than win by 7.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just as a fan, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, we were on the edge of your seat for both of them.
Yeah.
Like,
and I love Hellebuck, so again, like I'm happy for him. But yeah, that one. And I'll say, Austin, Texas, did not think that there was a lot of hockey fans there. This bar that we were at filled up within like 10 minutes at 7 a.m.
and it was. Well, I think the Olympics do that. Like, it's a gold. Like, it has been 12 years since there's been a gold medal hockey game with, players you want to watch play for a gold, right? Like, no offense.
Hey, now
but
Ryan Donato won, I think,
yeah,
a medal with the American. Or I don't even know if he won gold. Actually, Russia might have won gold that year. But anyways,
yeah, that was the Kaprizov.
That was the
golden
Kaprizov
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They couldn't even get past Germany that year.
Yeah, they were pretty rough. I think Sam Hentges, former Wild prospect, was on that team. So, yeah. But to your point, like, we get the Olympics, and then in 2 years, they did announce kind of some of the official details yesterday of the World Cup of Hockey making its return in 2028. They're claiming that 8 countries are going to be invited to that, so I'd assume the 4 nations. And then based on the reporting, it sounds like the other 4 will be Czechia, Switzerland, Germany, and Slovakia, be my guess. It sounds like the idea of bringing Russia still, given their current occupation of Ukraine, is not sitting well with the European countries, and there's pretty much zero interest to have them be a part of that tournament until they end that war. So those would be the 8 that I would guess. Things could change before then. They didn't specifically say, but that would be the 8 that I would guess will be there.
Yeah, and did they say the World Cup, is that NHL planning it, or is IHF going to be involved in that as well?
I think it's the NHL, because they're the ones that sent all the press release and stuff. So.
Sweet, because that means we're going to have NHL rules, and we'll be able to have fighting, and we'll have NHL ice. So that'll be nice.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. So I don't know if they announced. I didn't actually check if it was when they said that's going to be taking place in 2028. I didn't see.
I'll say it's the last World Cup of Hockey I didn't give a shit about, because like it was, we had like Team Europe and like the Young Guns, and like it was just such a gimmick before the start of the season, and no one cared about it. Like everyone was playing shinny out there. Like people, what's that Minnesota tournament in like every summer? The Beauty League. Like the Beauty League had better games than the last World Cup that I watched. So Brett, you're muted. I don't know if you can hear me. Brett, you're muted. Oh, Brett's gone. All right, Brett's gonna come back. Oh, I was like, I thought his internet went for a second, chat. So I was like, I'm just gonna give it a sec. Okay, Brett will be back. Olympic hockey's equal to soccer. World Cup for fans. But that was 5-on-5 though. The 4-on-4 must have been due to a penalty, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, I think we're back.
All right. We're good. Olympic hockey is equal to the Soccer World Cup for hockey fans. Should have paid the price for Trocheck. He's been on fire since the Olympics. They tried. They sent an offer to him. But they didn't want to bite.
Yeah, and I believe Joe Smith on his show this week mentioned that the asking price was like a roster young top 6 forward, like first and another prospect. So like in the Wild's case, like that would have cost them Danila Yurov, and I don't think they have any interest in moving Yurov, because 1, they are still thin at the center position, and 2, as they go after these big fish, as we'll talk about the deadline here in a little bit deeper into the show. But I think you look at, if you do want to go spend money on these bigger fish in the offseason, whether that's through trades, free agency, however you get that done, you need some cheaper contracts with guys that can contribute. And I think Yurov will be a big part of that, or he's going to have to be kind of a key piece of one of those potential deals. So. I'm not in the camp they should have overpaid for him. But speaking of Trocheck, there's, I think, one more thing to hit on the Olympics here, and then we can move on. There was a lot of questions about the roster building that Bill Guerin did heading into that playoffs, one of which being including Vincent Trocheck over the likes of, a Cole Caulfield or Jason Robertson. some of those types. But, he ended up being a really big piece of that fourth line. The U.S. penalty kill, which was perfect in the tournament. He was a huge part of that as well. So, he got a lot of criticism for it, and a lot of people, Hellebuck build him out in the penalty kill, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it doesn't matter. Like, the team he built was perfect on the PK and won the gold medal. Like, there's really, you can try to criticize the decisions or the process, but in the end, the results are what mattered, and he got them the gold medal. So I thought that was just interesting. Like, I myself, I think I still would have taken some other players there over a guy like Trocheck, but that's why I'm not the GM of the U.S. Olympic team.
Yo, shout out to Dave, by the way, Dave chirps every now and then, but Dave is one of the homies and has been supporting this channel and this show for a while. Donates $10 freaking to the show. Dave, I don't have my soundboard right now because I'm dog sitting and house sitting, but I'd be blasting the Jamaican horns if I did. Dave says the NHL needs to... Yeah, well, that was actually pretty fucking accurate right there. That was great. The NHL needs to find a way to get Russian players in the World Cup. Instead of calling a Russian team, call it Motherland or name it after a famous Russian player from the past. Just name it like the OVOs or something. Something like that. Dude, Dave, thank you so much for the $10, man. Your support goes a long way, and we really appreciate it. Goddamn, $10 too from Dave. Wow.
Big shouts. But yeah, I mean, it's... Anytime you're dealing with geopolitical factors with international play, it gets touchy, and like I can't speak to the feelings that European countries have about what's happening in between the Russia and Ukraine. So I think the NHL is at least more tuned into that than I probably am. But I think the general consensus is Europe doesn't really appreciate it or like it. And I think until that war ends, I think no matter what, there's just whether or not the hockey players are involved or not, or if you think they should be considered in that, they're not going to give them that avenue for marketing, I guess, their country, I think would be the way I would put it. But talking about big tournaments, Minnesota had a big one of our own as we move on here to our next topic, the state tournament, which I feel like it just like every year it's great. You're like, oh, there's no way that next year can be better. And then the next year's like, hey, but I think you look at the championship games that we got for both Class A and AA, I think it's going to be hard to top this for a very, very long time. Starting in Class A, you had Warroad and Hibbing. It's not often you see two teams from northern Minnesota kind of get into it. And these were, two of the best teams in the state all year for the Class A. Warroad has a good lead throughout this game. Hibbing roars back late to tie it up, and then Warroad's able to figure it out, get the game winner in overtime, and like, how do we top that for AA? And it starts off, Minnetonka just starts scoring at will. I think they were up 3-0 at one point, and then I think goals were even in the second, so they got up to 4-1, and kind of got that's pretty much over. This is the best team in the state. They're not going to bend over and lose this in the third. But sure enough, Moorhead vigilant, their best players leading the way. They get 3 goals in the third period, including the final one with the goaltender pulled. And then in double overtime, find the game-winning goal. Like, just phenomenal. The thing for me that was cool with the tournament this year, I feel like it just got a lot more national coverage, I think, than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. Like ESPN, even leading up to it, like before the tournament even started, was like showing clips of like the all-hair team and the different sellies and everything. There's a sports media company called Snapback Sports who sent out one of their kind of like bloggers and influencers out to like learn about the hatred for Edina. They had a 45-minute documentary that they posted on that. I did retweet it when it came out. So if you scroll back in my timeline, I haven't got a chance to watch it yet. But just like to see the spotlight that tournament's getting, like sellout crowds again. I think the semifinals had over 20,000 in attendance, which is just nuts. Like, it was so cool just to have the rest of the US, like people were like, wow, this is a really big deal. Like, and it was just cool to kind of see it get that national attention. And then for the games to be as good as they were with the late game dramatics, the overtimes, like some of the biggest moments that those kids will ever have in their life, and just really cool to be able to watch it this year.
Yeah, so I didn't know about the national coverage because I was literally doing desolate camping in the middle of the desert of Sedona. And we had like 1 or 2 bars somehow, some way. and 45 TV app, of course. So like we were just able to watch. I think we watched on the side on the like side of this like crazy highway just outside of Prescott is where we watched like I think the Thursday games, and then Friday, Saturday in the middle of the desert in Sedona. So I had no idea about the coverage. I was just stoked that all the games delivered as like either I was traveling, like driving, or hiking all day, and then like made dinner, chilled for a bit, watched the games before bed. So it was just awesome. And yeah, that finals game, I mean, the win over Edina and then the Spuds taking on Minnetonka in the finals, like what an insane comeback that was. Love to see a comeback in sports. The funny thing is we had that mobile sauna like fired up and we timed it perfectly. And then like because of the double overtime, like we just stayed up way later than expected because it was just like, oh man, like we were an hour and a half past like when we were like timing like peaking the sauna and warming it up. And so that I remember that night I don't think I got to bed until like 1 or something because yeah, the whole routine of camping in the middle of the desert. But yeah, what a great tournament. It was the first one that I missed in person since moving to Minnesota. So I hit 3 in a row. Well, I guess 4 in a row because when I visited that one year, we went to the games too. So 4 in a row. So the first one that I missed, and I hope I'm not on the road next year because it's just such a vibe there as well. And I think they said over 19,000 people was standing room for the semifinals. Not even the finals.
It was
like unbelievable.
Yeah, it was nuts. So like the one kind of I think thing that left a little bit of a sour taste in people's mouths, I think, was kind of the reaction from Minnetonka after the loss. You come in as the best
crashed
team.
out.
Yeah, so I mean, you saw players like kind of taking off their medals during the ceremony, and then all the players, the coaches, the whole organization, if you want to call it that, refused to meet with the media after the game, which I can't remember the last time that's happened since it's kind of had the higher end media coverage that it's gotten. But to me, like, you can't be the best team all year and tout yourselves and be, selling up 4-1 and having this ego and then not be able to check that ego when it doesn't go your way.
And continue to sell it to the nation and furthermore, like Canadians who can maybe like find a way to watch it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a big part of that's, I think, on the coaches, like as a coach, you got to be like, hey, we gotta go answer for this. Like you guys played your hearts out, but you got to go talk. Like that's part of being here. That's part of losing. And the fact that they didn't do that, the leaders didn't step up, like that was a little disappointing to me. Like Minnetonka already doesn't have the greatest reputation as the spoiled, entitled rich kids, and that certainly did not help. But to Moorhead got Edina to kind of throw tantrums after their loss.
I was just gonna say they had one player like suspended, and I don't think he's coming back next year for his senior year. I mean, I don't think he's playing for the team maybe next year. The way he reacted after, like he reacted like a freaking WHL player did in the 90s. It was great. I was loving it, but I was like, oh yeah, he's fucked. Like, because yeah. And by the way, Dave with another donation. Cue the Jamaican horns again. I love the thing for the state tournament. The northern schools hate the metro. The metro hates the private schools, and everybody hates Edina. Yep, it's beautiful. Dave, thank you so much for supporting the show, my man. It's so great to be back. And we love just having you here despite the donations. You've gone above and beyond here today, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never got the opportunity, but I mean, some of the biggest games I played in my high school career were in the section tournament, like leading into state. My sophomore year, I think we got steamrolled by Duluth East, and then my junior and senior year played in some tight games with teams that we weren't supposed to play in tight games with, and those were fun. We didn't win them, but my high school since then has made one state tournament. They went for the first time, I think, in like 2017, and I think they lost to Elk River, who lost to Moorhead in their section. So would have had to go through Moorhead to get there this year. But I think even that too. I mean, you saw some schools that were there this year that haven't been there in a while, like Rosemount. We talked about the 2 northern teams. So just seeing just the way hockey continues to grow throughout the state. And the spotlight that it got from the national media, and then to deliver with 2 5-4 games that needed overtime or double overtime, like just spectacular. And to your point too, like it being so accessible to watch too, being free to watch on Channel 45, I think is awesome as well. And I think the the World Juniors next time they're in Minnesota should take notes of what goes well in the state tournament with the affordability, the accessibility of watching it. Like, it's a big deal because you can go there for cheap. If you can't go, you can watch it for free relatively easily. Like,
Bro.
in my mind, should be two pretty big lessons. But
With how much of a swing and a miss the World Juniors was, I don't think they're coming back to Minnesota anytime soon.
yeah, we'll see.
They're going to go to Buffalo before they come back to Minnesota. Watch.
All right. Moving on here through our headlines. The other big thing that happened, aside from the big things we already talked about, the trade deadline. So I did have a lot of takes, like I mentioned, post trade deadline with Hoppy and Z on their show, so you can go back and find that. But I just want to get.
I'll link it in the chat. I'll link it in the chat. So
perfect. So we had some really good discussions on there about the Wild's moves. So we won't dive too deep into it, but we'll get to the Wild last, and then we'll kind of spend the rest of the show on the Wild here. So we'll start with this. It wasn't an explosive deadline. I wouldn't say like the biggest names probably moved were Nazem Kadri and John Carlson. But it was funny going in. You heard, it's a buyer's market, and then you hear, you see some of the prices. The Winnipeg Jets giving up like firsts and prospects, receiving firsts and prospects for Luke Shen and Logan Stanley. Like that, basically like the Wild getting first from Middleton and Bogosian. Like that's the equivalent of what the Jets did. They got, I think, Isaac Rosen out of it too, who's a pretty solid prospect that in the Buffalo organization. So like it just showed like Kadri, despite his contract age, everything, he nets a pretty big return for Calgary with some firsts, some, Victor Olofsson's a quality NHL player, and then John Carlson, his age, but Anaheim leading that division right now goes and makes a splash, adds a veteran to their blue line, gives up a first to do it. And then some others.
Carlson's not really like showing his age right now. Like obviously, he's not
for sure
like the powerhouse he was a few years ago, but like he's still putting up 40 to 50 points every year, like at least 10 goals, right?
Yeah. And the Blues didn't trade their big fish, Kyrou and Thomas. The Wild reportedly were in on Thomas. Just didn't have the assets, at least at this point, or this season, to give up for him. But they get rid of Braden Shen, Justin Falk, get some nice returns for that. So I still think that if I were them, I would not be trading those players. Like I think we talked about this also on Judd's Bud, just about like the Blues have a pretty decent core in place, and I don't know that I'd try to blow a hole through that, but they seem to want to do it. So I think there was a lot of trades, which I think made it kind of fun. Trickled in. The Wild still active, transitioning into them. Robbie Fabry off waivers, and then they acquire, I believe you could say it was 4 players in the deadline-ish time, with Bobby Brink being probably like the headliner of that. 1-for-1 for David Jiricek. I'm getting Nick Foligno for future considerations. Michael McCarron for a second. We'll talk about him in here in a little bit. And then also get Jeff Petrie from the Florida Panthers for a 7th-round pick. All 5 of those guys have played and made impact so far. And I think you combine those additions with the big trade for Quinn Hughes in the year. Like it's been a pretty big trade year for the Wild when you look at, the roster and assets they started the year with and kind of what they're at now. You've brought in Hughes, Fabry, McCarron, Foligno, Brink. You've sent out Jiricek, Rossi, Ogren, Buium, and there's been some minor league deals and some picks and stuff being swapped beyond that. Like it's been a really busy season for this Wild team, and it went from the Quinn Hughes trade obviously switches this quickly, but it went from a team like I think our window's going to open in about 2 years when these prospects, the Buiums, the Ogrens, the Rossis are like kind of in their prime, and all of a sudden they make this trade, and it was nope, the time is now. Like it is this year and probably the next 2 to 3 seasons after this. If all goes well, but a lot of the young assets out of here, as I said, Rossi, Buium, Ogren, their 26 first, Jiricek, a 2028 second, Kyle Masters, Mikey Milne. Like it's been a lot of players that have been shipped out, and they've brought in a lot of veterans. But I think overall, you look at holistically the Wild on the year, like it's hard to be too critical. Like I think I said I'd be about an A-, I think, for me on the year, but you could argue that should be an A+ when you bring in a guy of Quinn Hughes' caliber. I think if he resigns in the offseason, I think you can retroactively upgrade that rating to an A+ in my mind. It's just until that uncertainty is cleared up, I have a hard time giving it like an A. But I think overall, like I don't have too many complaints getting a player like Nick Foligno for free. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he looked good tonight too. He's looked good so far.
Yeah, he's still got juice. Like I think he's a good player. And the fact that he could be, one of those guys on the outside looking in if this team gets healthy come playoff time, that's not a bad problem to have when it's, Fabry and Foligno are your potentially your healthy scratches, or Nico Sturm or those types. So you can see it on the screen there. Like it's a lot of assets that have moved around this season for the Wild.
Yeah. It was fun, like covering it from a Wild perspective. It was fun just seeing all like the little moves as well, like Tanner Pearson going to Buffalo for some playoff like experience there, who gets injured a lot, but like still has a little bit to give on a limited role in the bottom six. Nick Delorier was moved to Carolina. I mean, when he was with the Wild, I'll say he was a fan favorite. He's one of the last few like big tough guys in the National Hockey League. There's just a bunch of fun little moves, which made like trade deadline, a fun experience. Again, I was on like the road all morning, so I was just whenever I had service, like continuing to check, and like I always had updates. And I think I had like Sirius XM that was going, but it kept like coming in and out. But overall fun day. The Wild didn't get that big fish going into the playoffs this year. I still think Billy Guerin is far from done. Obviously this year he's done, and they have depth going into the playoffs, which is kind of what we're going to talk about next year's playoffs. But I don't think he's done overall. And I think off season or first 20 to 30 game window, kind of like when he acquired Hughes this year, is when we're still going to see him be active.
I think they're going to be really aggressive in the summertime. Like all of what would have been high end free agents have re-signed with their teams, and you look at teams like Toronto, St. Louis. Ottawa has a decision to make with Brady Tkachuk coming up. Like these teams have to decide, hey, is this guy a part of our future or not? And the Wild could potentially be in the same boat if Quinn Hughes decides, hey, I don't want to be a part of the future here for whatever the reason may be. Like they're going to have to shop him around. Like there's going to be a lot of big names that are going to be out there come summertime, and like you can bet the Wild are going to be in it with everything that they feel comfortable with. I think that goes up to Urhoff and Wallstedt and down to pretty much any other prospect and pick that they have available. Potential roster players too. I'd say Boldy, Kaprizov, Faber, Eriksson Ek and Gustafsson are probably your 5 untouchables, and I think everything else is probably on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
So, any other thoughts from you just on like the acquisition costs? David Jiricek, a lot of the writing kind of seemed like it was on the wall for him. Obviously, they gave up. I think it was first, second, third, fifth, and Hunt or whatever it was, like pretty big. And then they just turned that into Bobby Brink. But I think if you look at it, like you gave up a first and David Jiricek for, you gave up your first essentially, and you eventually turned that into Bobby Brink. Like I think if you still had that first you gave up in the Jiricek trade, and that turned into a Bobby Brink type player, like you wouldn't be too upset with that. I know he got back in action tonight. We haven't seen him with a healthy lineup yet. He battled through an injury, but a guy that has RFA status, so the Wild kind of can control, if they qualify him, a pretty movable contract if he's a player you want to throw in a trade over the summer. But I thought that was a really good piece of business. Jiricek seemingly doing decently so far, playing for the Philadelphia Flyers minor league team in Lehigh Valley. He's had some goals, some of those defensive gaffes that we're accustomed to seeing here. But, I still think that Jiricek's a guy that's going to be a top 4 defenseman in this league, maybe a number 5, but that'll play on the, that'll be, he'll be a guy, not to this level or degree, but like a Bouchard and Erik Karlsson, where there's going to be some really good offensive moments they're going to come at the expense of some ugly defensive plays. And I think if he can get better at the backward skating and just learn to play the defensive side of the game a little bit more, I think he does have a future, but I think there's still that needs time to get there still for him. And, much like with Bouillon and some of these other assets the Wild have moved out, like their time is now. They don't have time to wait for David Jiricek. Yeah. Bobby Brink helps them now. And so they get a player they think, of equal value that, is more in their timeline.
Yeah. As Jim Leahy would say, shit clock's ticking. It wasn't happening in Minnesota. I mean, Wallstedt had more points than Jiricek in his time with the team this season. And, Yeah, I think a lot of people were complaining about, like the assets going out to acquire him. Like, look, not every trade is going to be a great trade. Not every trade is going to hit, but not every trade is going to be like a complete loss. And the fact that like Hunt is back with this team, a serviceable NHL defenseman, and the fact that Bobby Brink, who should help this team, knock on wood, offensively, who's still young enough where like in the next 2 years he could develop and actually become like a solid third line and maybe even like second or elevated into the top 6 if needed, offensive guy. Minnesota boy just always like helps as well. Overall, it's like, I think it's like salvaged. It's not like they gave up a lot and then it was like a complete bust. It was like, yeah, they paid for a $10 lottery ticket instead of a $1 lottery ticket, and they got $5 in return.
Yeah. And like, at the time, like I wasn't upset with the Jiricek trade. Like when it happened, like I think the Wild had a lot of assets at the time. Like they had a pretty deep prospect pool, and they took a swing on a type of player they didn't have, which is a big right-handed shot defenseman. Like they're looking for a succession plan behind, Bogosian and Spurgeon and whoever else. And it didn't pan out, but they found a way to recoup some of those assets, and I think that's the best result you can ask for. Like it's not too often that Judd Brackett misses on an evaluation, and for all we know, like I said, Jiricek could still turn into a good player down the road. We're seeing, I think, Liam Ogren now starting to find his footing. I think he's got like 8 points in his last 16. I think Rossi's had like, he's got like 7 points in his last 3. Williams still young, still figuring out, but
Vancouver's like so bad too.
Right.
It's not even funny. It's not even
so.
funny how bad they are. Like it's stupid. So
yeah. So but I think now you have it up on screen here. I pointed this out, but like I think you look at just the Wilds, especially their bottom 6 now. Like this was a team I think you were talking about before we came on. Like, oh, this team is soft. They're small. They can't compete with these bigger teams. Like
those are just dumb things to say right now because the eye test
no longer
and the analytics prove otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their average now, pretty much across the board: 6'1", 200 pounds across their forward and defense, and then their bottom 6, 6'2", 207 combined at the time of this tweet, which was after the deadline, 853 hits. I'm sure that's north of 900 now, but you're talking about McCarron, the Folignos, Trenyan. If those guys are in your bottom 6, that's pretty formidable. You have some beef on the back end with Bogosian, with Middleton. Petrie's no slouch himself, and you look at the Wild's quote unquote smaller players. It's Kaprizov, Hughes, Zuccarello, Brink, like some of the more skilled players. So even their guys that aren't the biggest, make their impact in other ways. So it's a deep roster.
The Wild had 23 hits tonight and held the Blackhawks to 10, but for the longest time, the Blackhawks are well under double digits. They were like 4 or 5 for most of the game. It was only until like the last like 5 to 10 minutes is where they just started letting it go a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of guys they want to deal with. And I think it gives them, to your point, like they can play that physical, that nasty game. Like we've already seen them, the first game, Bobby Brink was in the lineup, like Brock Faber steps up and basically fights for him. Like they've welcomed these guys in quickly, and they've got great chemistry in that room and guys that want to stick up for each other. And when you have, as we talked about earlier, if a guy like Nick Foligno or Robbie Fabry's your healthy scratch going in the playoffs, like you're in an awfully good situation there with your depth and have the ability to move things around, guys that can play up on your second line or your fourth line, depending on how things shake out. So, yeah. Let's see. McCarron. Last thing, timely release yesterday from our friend Scott Wheeler at The Athletic. He's working on his prospect rankings. And unlike the previous years, we've had to wait to the top 5 to 10 teams. The Wild this year come in at 23rd in his rankings, all the way down from 2nd last year. His top 5, Charlie Stramel, Adam Banach, David Spacek, Riley Height, and then Hunter Haight, who he said he wouldn't. You could have those two interchangeable. And a pool that was previously really deep, as we mentioned, with all the trades, especially the Quinn Hughes trade. Mm-hmm. A rather thin pool now, but like
who's Nadinov too gone last year too, right? And
yeah, Carson Lambos I think has aged out of being a U23 player. So like I think there'll be some people like, oh, just like I said, all these guys are bust. They went from second, 23rd, but the reality is these young players, like they use them to win now. But I still think there's some players to like. I think if you look at our rankings compared to kind of where Scott is, I think we're pretty much in lockstep. I think the top 5 remaining on our board were Stramel, Banach, Height. I think we may have had a different defenseman in there over Haight maybe, but like we were pretty much, our order was a little bit different, but the consensus top 5 there. But I think Banach's the one of that group that still excites me the most. Like I think Charlie Stramel's going to be an NHL player. I just think it's going to be in a bottom 6.
He might be like another Foligno.
Or like a Michael McCarron, like what we seen, like a big,
which I'm okay with, but like that's probably, and that's why they drafted him. So I mean, that works. I think he's got the highest floor. Like he's the one I feel the most confident will be an NHL player. But I think if Adam Banach can continue to do what he's doing internationally and at juniors as he continues to level up, really excited. I believe he committed to, I believe it's Western Michigan. Next year for college, which will be really cool to see if how he handles that jump. Is it a successful jump like some of the higher end guys? Is it a Ryder Ritchie situation in Boston, who team had a little bit of a down year? I think they're already out of their conference tournament, won't make the NCAA tournament. I believe Cole Hudson debuted for Washington last night. He was a big part of that team. I just think it's positive because he's promised minutes, or else he wouldn't go there, because he could be a stud and continue just to be a stud and a star in the O. And B, like Western Michigan is going to lose some guys, but like their program is buzzing right now, and especially if they win, like I think he'll be insulated with some really good players, and I think, like you say, if Ryder Ritchie, if the team played better this year, like I wouldn't say it was like a bad year. And I don't think it's a bad year for development wise for him, but like Banach could really like be a guy that college hockey is talking about as a freshman next year.
Yeah, because he has, I think, of the Wild prospect, he has the most, I think, high-end skill potential. Like, I think if he can watch a lot of tape on, like, Matt Zuccarello and just, Zuccarello, undersized guy, but, if he is a good skater, which, usually the things that will hold you back if you're an undersized player are inability to skate and a timidness to go in the dirty areas and a low hockey IQ. And I think those are 3 areas to me that Banach excels. Like, I think he's got, like, we've seen the crazy creative plays. He is a really good skater.
And he's not 73 points.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to go and get his nose in there and dig for pucks and battle. And
we saw it in the World Juniors. He was battling he played so many minutes in World Juniors. It was insane.
Yeah, and I think does he have another year of eligibility next year?
Yeah, he's 18. So I
think right. Yeah, so we'll get to see him again.
No, he's 18. He's 18. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he'll have another year left. So, I mean, Banach's the one I would say I don't want to trade just because I'm excited for what that could happen, and I'm always for keeping the short kings. I think if a team asks for Stramel, in my mind, like I think as much as like I'd like to develop a center again and the hometown kid again, but I think if his value to other teams is if they're valuing him as a middle 6 or top 6 center, like jump on that evaluation and quote unquote sell high because he's had a great year. I don't think so. There's a question if he's going to go back to Michigan. I don't think so. I think he's
coming to the NHL,
especially if he's traded and can have an opportunity to play. But yeah, so I think like I had no qualms with his ranking. Like I'm not going to nitpick the position of the Wild overall because I don't pay attention to the 32 other teams players as much. I do, I follow the Wilds to an extent. So, Hunter Haight, was nice to see him get on the score sheet tonight for the first time. Made a nice play on the entry.
Drew a penalty tonight too. So.
Yeah, I think he's looked fine in his games. He's got called up. Spacek, we've seen him cup of tea, played well internationally. So I think he could be a tweener, a 5, 6, 7th, 8th defenseman, somewhere in that range. But there's still some good players. I just a lot of the big ones are gone, but that's the cost of look at every team. I think the last place team was Florida. I think Tampa was in there pretty low. Colorado's in there pretty low. I think Vegas is in there pretty low. Like it's the cost of having your window open is you don't have a lot usually to refill the cupboard. So that's where the Wild have gone. And you just have to hope at this point, the difference is those teams, it has paid off for them already. They have the cup. The Wild, it's their turn next to hopefully join that group. So,
yeah. All right, let's turn our attention to the analytics agenda.
So analytics agenda tonight, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show after this here. But didn't talk about Michael McCarron much in the trade deadline segment because I did kind of have this section that we're doing now reserved for him. And I was one of the many that was a little bit critical of him when they made the trade. A second round pick for a guy he's a fourth line center was what he is. But you look at just kind of where he excels. It's in a lot of the areas that the Wild needed help. They needed some more size in the bottom six. They needed a guy with maybe a little bit of a scoring touch, but someone that could win faceoff, someone that could be an effective penalty killer. And you just kind of look at what he's done now
just
in his
presence too, 6'6",
Yeah, and he was using that size tonight. He was in there in the mix. He was defending teammates. We saw him bulldoze Bedard in the first shift, the last game against Chicago. A guy that's big but not afraid to use that size. But I think I've been impressed. Like, to me, is it still worth a second? To be determined. We'll see how the playoffs go. But the early dividends look good. I have it up on screen here. This was coming into tonight, so it doesn't include the game tonight. But a 51.1% expected goal share. The fourth line this year has probably been in the 40 to 43% range. So he's helped that a little bit. He's got 3 points. To your point earlier, we talked about the hits. He's got, I think, it's 18 or 19 of those. Averaging, fourth line minutes, about 11 minutes a game. But I think you look at the really big impact it's been on the penalty kill and the faceoff dot. He is coming into tonight. Was 61.1% on his draws, 33 of 44 on the year, with the Wild, pretty solid. 8 for 13 on penalty kill draws. We saw it again tonight, winning draws, clearing the puck. It kills 30 seconds. So he's been just kind of helping these areas where the guys need it. And I think just the other interesting piece here, I have another graphic just kind of looking at the Wild centers since the trade deadline. There's been a lot of talk about the team improving on the faceoff dot. And in the grand scheme of things, I think it's averaged out to they're winning 3 to 4 more draws per game, but I think it's the situations that they're winning and that's been effective. I talked about McCarron, being really good on the PK, 8 for 13 there. I think he won a couple more there tonight. But he's got 14 or so minutes and a half, plus some more tonight now, where he's killed penalties and hasn't been on the ice for a goal yet. PK was a weakness. His winning the draws has been a big piece of that. But the Wild have had a lot of trust in him early on too. You look here. So what I'm showing on the screen here is total faceoffs, wins and losses since March 6th. And then where those faceoffs have come. So the offensive zone, the defensive zone, and the neutral zone. And McCarron has been on the ice for 44 D-zone faceoffs of his 71 total. That's 62% of his draws. All situations, that includes power play, even strength, penalty kill, wherever. That leads all the Wild centers. Nico Sturm, who's kind of been his line mate, 60%. So those 44 faceoffs aren't necessarily draws that he's taken, but it's been him and Sturm out there, and they kind of alternate depending on which side of the ice they're on. Nico Sturm taking draws on his strong side, which will be on the left side of the ice, McCarron on the right side of the ice. So, and they've done well. They're sitting at a combined, Nico Sturm's 66% since the trade deadline, McCarron 61%, Eck right at 50%. And then Hartman better. He's at 48%. Urov still struggling a little bit in that department, down at 40%, but making his impacts in other areas. So, a huge piece. I wasn't sure if this is going to be a guy that was going to be on the ice every night. My Twitter bio says Nico Sturm truther. But as I talked about with on our deadline show with Hoppy and Z, I wanted to see a little bit more from Nico Sturm, but I think, he had the shorthanded goal in Colorado, gets the goal tonight. Big block shot that he came back from, and
goes down the tunnel, comes back, and he's the one who scored. Again, there was someone in our live chat, Mr. Blind Guitar Player, and he was like, "This team's soft." I'm like, that is the definition of a tough team when that's the goal that's scored tonight. So love to see.
Yeah, and so I think you just look at he's pushing Nico Sturm, and Nick Foligno is going to push Nico Sturm, and guys want to play. Like, these are athletes. This is their job. They play with a lot of pride. Nico Sturm's won Stanley Cups. I'm sure he wants to do it again. And so, I'm still not a huge believer in that faceoffs holistically have a huge impact on the game, but situationally, I think to the point about the PK, the power play, the Wild's power play without Eriksson Ek hasn't looked as good. A big part of that is Ek has won a lot of his power play draws. A lot of his 50% of his wins have come on the power play, getting, things set up in the offensive zone. And with the PK, I think like if you can get that early clear, it's been a Wild's issue in the past. We've saw them, they can't win the draw on the PK, and all of a sudden they're, getting scored off the draw. They're getting hemmed in for a minute and 30 seconds, and a goal is
look at tonight. Like, when did they start looking better? When they were winning faceoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They went on a stretch where the Blackhawks were above them by it was like almost, I think it was almost like by 8. And it was that stretch in the game where like the Wild just had nothing. And it was like they would win the neutral zone battles when they could maybe, force a turnover. But, you say situationally, but yeah, it does affect definitely the ebbs and flows of the games. And tonight it was like, you win faceoffs, you have more possession time. Quinn Hughes and Faber can do more. And, when Faber had the puck tonight, he actually looked really good. He was super active. It was so interesting seeing Spurgeon play with Hughes. And it was fun. But Hughes and Faber are still, that's the pairing. That's the pairing.
Yeah.
And for playoffs, that's the pairing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think my biggest takeaway was, I think, was it a lot to pay for a fourth line guy? Yes, but it's been nice to see a guy come in and basically do everything as advertised. Like, be physical, be an impactful penalty killer, win faceoffs in key moments, D-zone draws, penalty kill draws, that type of thing. And, he's chipped in a goal and 2 assists in the process. Like, he wasn't brought here to be a scoring center by any means, but, I think the impacts have been good. And, it gives you another piece. I think the fourth line's definitely been a weakness for the Wild this year. Like, there were times where it was guys like
Tyler Pitlick
and Ben
Hinostroza,
Jones and Vinny Hinostroza, and now it's Nico Sturm, Michael McCarron, Nick Foligno. Like, it's a completely different look
line to play against.
And
one other thing too, that second round, if you look at the trade, value wise, sure, overpayment, but where the team is at right now, that second round pick was never seen Minnesota Wild ice.
And it's a 2028 second, so there's still 2 years before then. If they need to, they can potentially recoup that asset one way or another as well.
Exactly. And if this team is supposed to be competitive for a window of 3 to 4 years, again, that player's never seen the ice, so it's and I think it was a good decision to make if you look at all the factors.
Yeah, and I think he's making I think it's a pretty much a vet minimum contract. It's like $775,000. I think
what you need. That's what you need
to the end of this year. And if he's a free agent, likes it here, it's probably a guy you can bring back for $1 million, $2 million. But you need those
probably
cheaper.
Less than $2 million if you're we're a playoff team and you're gonna get minutes on the fourth line, but we can't pay you $2 million. We'll pay you 1 or 1.2. He's fucking staying.
Yeah.
We'll throw in a hit bonus in there too. You hit X amount of hits, we throw in another $100,000. I'm sure there's little things like that his agent is writing in the fine print.
Win 53% or more of your draws.
I'm sure there's block shots. There's so many little things like that in contracts too. For those type of players.
Yeah. So I think that's the other piece of it too, is, can they get an extension on him? If he can be an impactful part of this run, you need a team that can play 4 lines. Because there's going to be injuries, there's going to be situations where you need a big draw, late in the game, or there's a team gets a power play with 30 seconds left in the period. You got to win that draw. You win it, you basically eliminate that last ditch effort or whatever it might be. So
I say again all the time, the Capitals would not have won the Stanley Cup without Devontae Smith-Pelly and Jay Beagle in their lineup. Jay Beagle won all the crazy key faceoffs, and Devontae Smith-Pelly was a prick to play against, and it was just I say it all the time. They were the key to helping them win the Stanley Cup, and they were bottom 6 players.
Well, and I think to kind of bring our show full circle here, I talked about the start of the show, Bill Guerin, the roster decisions, Michael McCarron is to the Wild what Vincent Trocheck was to Team USA, right? It was a guy maybe you can argue whether or not the fans were excited for that player to be there, but he was brought in to play a role. He's playing that role perfectly right now, as Trocheck did at the Olympics. And I think Bill Guerin saw the value of a guy that wins a lot of draws, can be a good penalty killer. And, he did acquire Vincent Trocheck in a way. in Michael McCarron, playing that similar role that Trocheck played at the Olympics. So again, we'll see how it pays off. I mean, they still going to be a grind through either Colorado or Dallas in the first round, but I think there's pieces in place to give you optimism, and I'm excited to see what they can do come Saturday in that preview against Dallas.
By the way, I did throw up a poll question midstream inspired by Dave, and it was, what name should Russia hide under for the next World Tournament? And I just threw a few out there. I had OVOs, the Motherland, the Ball and Stallins, which,
oh jeez,
I mean, and then the Hammers. The Hammers is leading by 50%. Ball and Stallins 33. I think they have to be like, that's like some Globetrotter shit. Ball and Stallins.
Like the Gorilla Thrillers or something.
The Gorilla Thrillers. Oh man! So thank you for those who voted in that impromptu poll question there.
Yeah. So there was your crash course of like everything that's happened for
an hour too. I can't believe it.
Yeah, but as you just said, I think as we go through these next couple of weeks, we'll maybe dive into some of the Olympic topics. Didn't talk about the political ramifications of kind of the aftermath of the U.S. win. We will hit on that at some point. I just want to organize my thoughts better before we talk about that. Some of the I want to get some of your perspective on some of the Canada's decisions with their blue line, with some of the decisions they made there. But, the Wild, I believe tonight was game 70, so 12 more to go before the end of the regular season here. I think they're every other night until like the end of the month.
It's nuts. It is nuts, this final stretch.
Yeah, because let's see. Yeah, they're every other night. Okay, they get 2 off after Dallas, and then they go every other again. And then they have 3, was it 4? Wow. 4 days off between March 29th and April 1st, and then the Canucks on the April 2nd. So
I think I'm going to go to that game on April 2nd.
Yeah, and then they're every other day. Then they're every other day, and then end with a back-to-back.
This would be the perfect birthday game. Hughes gets his first goal on the power play. Wild beat the Canucks, but Liam Ogren scores, Rossi scores, and Zeev at least gets 2 assists, but the Wild beat them. Like, I need the Canucks to lose every single game because I need...
No, you need a game like that one last year or was it 2 years ago? Like, it was in like the middle of February.
Blowout. Or not even blowout, sorry, that
no, it was like... It was like 10 to 8 or some weird ass shit score.
Dude, it was like, I think it was like 8 or 7-6 or 7-5 at the end of the second period. And I was like, what the fuck is this game?
And the Wild had like 5 power play goals or something.
Yeah. I just need the Canucks to lose out because we need Gavin McGregor on the team, baby. Let's fucking go.
There was 3 hat tricks in that game.
Yeah, it was wild.
JT Miller, Eck, and Capri. Let's see.
I know. Kiefer Sherwood wasn't even. I don't even think he was on
10 to 7.
Yet.
Wow. I was right. It was 10 to 7. Yeah. JT Miller, Eck, and Kaprizov had hat tricks.
Insane.
And then let's see. Yeah. And then it was 5-2 Canucks at one point.
Back when Pettersson could still put points up. Dude, he was benched in the entire third period of the US-Sweden game. How crazy is that?
Insane. So, really a healthy roster. That's still one of. I think there are on my bingo board. I think there are 5 spaces left for blackout this season, and I think one of them is playing 8 or more games with a healthy roster. Because I worked with, I believe, I don't know if she's still in the chat, but I believe it was Julia. It was hers. We looked at how many healthy games they played last year, and I think it was either 6 or 7, 6, 7. But actually, it was like 6 or 7 games. And so we like, let's see if we can beat that by 1. And then of course I tweeted out like, hey, they're 1 away from tying it. And then that's when I think then Johansson got hurt, and then Foligno got hurt, and then there was all the injuries and stuff. The other ones were still waiting
the
for.
NHL. They're never. No team is ever healthy. Like I wonder who the healthiest team in the NHL is. I'd love to. Maybe that's a homework assignment for myself.
Yeah,
we'll find that. That'll actually be interesting.
Let's see what else we got here. I want to see the.
By the way, big shout out to Dave again.
Combined points
for the donations tonight.
Boldy's got 75. Where's Hughes? The one thing I'm conflicted on. So I have a square in here that's the top 3 scorers combining for 250 points. Do I count Hughes's points from Vancouver?
I think you do. I think you do because they're season points.
Yeah. So what is his season long then? It may be an asterisk, but because they have 190. The three of them right now have 199.
I approved. It was harder to get points in Vancouver, and you still got points in Vancouver. So.
That's true.
So I approve.
What I said, they have 12 games left. They need to average. Not if we don't include Vancouver's games, they need to average 4.25 points a game as a trio for the last 12 games to get there. But 8 games with a healthy roster, top 3 scorers combining for 250 points, a penalty shot, which we have not, and it doesn't matter for either team. I just have penalty shot. I don't think we've seen one yet. We somehow have not had a Gordie Howe hat trick yet. We've been close. I think we've had I think both Hartman and Foligno have had goal and fight, but not goal, fight, and assist. And then the one that's going to be really hard is the all rookie goal that was made in mind with Yurov, Ogren, Buihim, Juracek, all those guys. So I said, I'll take an unassisted Yurov goal as counting. I think that's the only way, or a Yurov from Volstedt. I think are pretty much the only ways
could happen because, like I said, I think Volstedt has an assist, right?
He does.
Yeah.
He might have 2.
I was saying he had more points than Juracek in his run with the Wild so far. So that was
So not impossible to get a blackout yet, but we've had the loss of the 3rd string goalie point, a player put on waivers. We had an all Russian line put together.
Yeah,
a hat trick, a wild odd man rush without a shot on goal. We did get an ejection, Pitlick. We asterisked this one a little bit, a milestone goal called back. We counted the Hughes goal in the Olympics for this space because it would have been his first Olympic goal, but we counted it. We had a 10-game point streak. I think that was Hughes as well. The free space was the Jake Middleton tarps off interview. Bill Guerin did finally add a forward. We saw a 2-goal third period comeback, a PK going 5 for 5, a shutout, intentional offside. Jesper Volstedt got rookie of the month, a shorty-handed goal.
Eventful season.
5-game winning streak. So I don't remember what we did for last year, but I think we're already doing better than last year's one. There's some more positives this year too. I tried not to keep it as negative, so to get the juju. So we'll keep monitoring the bingo board as well here through these last 12 games.
Sweet.
But it'll be a grind.
Hey, good to be back. Episode 40, EP40. Shout out to Elias Pettersson.
There he is.
Hope he can just play hockey again. He actually is starting to turn it up a little bit now, and it's too late, bud.
Yeah, well, it's because I saw it's been dubbed the bro line in Vancouver. Their second line that's been playing well has been Rossi with Ogren and Besser. Nice. And the last year's Minnesota Wild fan in me is oh, what could have been?
What could have been? Yeah, I mean,
but
I
think I'd still rather have Hughes, and what he brings over those 3. But
yes.
It's cool to see. I'm forever going to be fans of all 3 of those players. I'll cheer for the Canucks. I like those guys. You could go back and look at my reaction when the Wild drafted Rossi. I've been a day one Marco Rossi fan, and I'm going to continue to cheer for him to do well. And I still think Liam Ogren's going to have a long career as a middle 6 forward.
Those 3 and Gavin McKenna are going to look nasty on a power play, baby.
Hey, it could. It'd be sweet. But
all right. Okay, I need to get a few hours of sleep because I got to wake up at 4 a.m. for Japanese MMA.
All righty.
Friday is going to be a busy day. So good to be back, Brett. Can't wait for next week. Thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you, Dave, for the donations. And to everyone, I will be back doing one Minnesota Wild live stream every week. Judd's Buds on Mondays, and Brett and I 80% of the time Wednesdays, every now and then a Thursday.
Yeah, so Dallas and Tampa before our next show. So we'll see where we're at in a week here with just 2 games in that time, but 2 big ones at that. So until then, see ya.
Peace.